This is Taking Stock. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and we're in Sokumzi's in Vilakazi Street in Soweto, talking to GG Alcock. Now, GG Alcock is a guy who grew up as a kid barefoot in the foothills of KZN and has illuminated South Africa and many global corporate sectors with his work on KasiNomics. His latest book is called The KasiNomics Revolution. It's been out for a year or so, where he illuminates the world as to the market opportunities that exist in townships that many people simply don't see the opportunity in. What was it that sort of lit your jets around the Kasi economy that other people haven't seen?
It's probably, well, my business, Minanawe, we were operating in the townships all the time, and we built this incredible project for Parmalat, on Parmalat cheese slices. And we basically launched them, and it was called the Gorta industry, which is a quarter loaf of bread or slap chips, the burger of the townships. And we introduced cheese slices, and we built it into more than R1 billion industry with in a sector that never existed before. And we're suddenly saying, hey, how many other sectors are there in this environment that are huge, that are not recognized?
So what was it, though? I mean, the Parmalat example was a great example, and that got you then to investigate this economy, which, if you measured it, I mean, we don't measure the township economy. It seems immeasurable. If you ask Stats SA, what does the township economy contribute to South Africa's GDP? I don't know if they even include it, or if they guess, or what they do when it comes to trying to quantify largely a cash economy here.
Yeah. So no one is measuring, and this is the big thing, is that because it's unquantified, people kind of feel like it doesn't exist. It's almost like saying because there was no quantification of Uber's opportunity, there wasn't the opportunity. You have to look at it differently. And I think that the big thing is that it is invisible. There's just the spaza sector. We're talking 100,000 spazas doing anything between 150 and 200 billion rand a year. The food industry is 87 billion rand at about 50,000 what I call Kasi course outlets. The muti industry is 3 billion rand a year, which is like 6% of our national health budget. There's the building industry, the Kasi building, the Kasi mechanics, the hair salon industry, and I can go on and on.
The funeral trade is a big one.
Huge. It's probably one that has been recognized, I guess, more than anything else. But the stokvel, which is associated to the whole funeral thing, is again, it's recognized as, I think, 44 to 50 billion rand a year. And in that one, no one's been able to penetrate it because, in a sense, the offerings to that market, the average stokvel, what a bank is offering them isn't what they need. And this is the thing, is that there are these sectors, they're unquantified, but most importantly, they're misunderstood. People don't know what is the offering that how do I connect with them? How do I add value?
What underpins the Kasi economy? I mean, it's human beings, it's cash, it's a desire for the good life. I mean, those are three things, I suppose, which and existence in some cases.
Look, I think that the strength of the Kasi economy is very much around the proximity to people, the offering, which is generally people say, oh, but you don't want to shop at a spaza shop. But the reality is that the offerings are incredibly sophisticated, and most importantly, they're adapted to people's lifestyles, or they're adapted to people's cultural tastes and desires. So, for instance, the food in the township environment is specifically designed around the flavors and the tastes that people want. The spaza shop is offering certain brands and products in combos and stuff that suit people's shopping behavior and consumption behavior. So very much suited to that. And these businesses are successful because they're completely in tune. We talk about hyper-personalization in the internet industry. Well, hyper-personalization happens even more so in this environment.
So, I mean, is there a place for the Jabulani malls in Soweto? I mean, they're very busy at the times I've been there, but I've generally been there at sort of month end. Is there a place for them in a society that is so hyper-focused on the consumer?
So, tend to joke about that they really serve a fantastic free Wi-Fi hotspot for people who research we've done recently shows that people go to the mall and they update all their apps and stuff at the
So you
mall.
switch off the updates from the 31st of the month until the 31st again, but you go to the mall, switch it back on again.
Update everything and you send the pictures and the videos to the people you want to send to. So, but on a more serious note, the mall has evolved to where it's basically a month end. 25th to the 5th of the month is when people go into the formal sector. You dress up, you take your kids, you take Goko, you take Auntie, you go and you do your shopping, a certain percentage of your shopping, and you take your kids to the KFC, and etc. So, you know, and you see, you know, you do what people call eye shopping, you know, which is window shopping, and basically it's become an experience. It's a month-end experience, and then for the rest of the month, issues like portability of products, the cost of transport, etc., mean that people increasingly will be purchasing. I'd say if you look at groceries, about 60% of their purchases are now moving into the informal retail sector, the spaza and what I call spazarette sector, and only about 40% then in that mall environment.
And that spaza sector is so interesting because it's become dominated in some townships around South Africa by foreigners. And whenever we have an upsurge in xenophobia, we see many of these shops being attacked. We see Chinese-owned shops, Somali-owned shops, particularly Indian-owned shops in some cases, where people angry or see an opportunity turn on the foreigners. And we had the small business minister, 4 or 5 years ago, going, these people must teach us their tricks.
Yeah.
And there's no great science to what these guys are doing, becoming very dominant players in an economy that they've understood really quickly, which large corporates in South Africa, certainly foreign corporates, don't really get.
So, look, I think that there's a number of dynamics here. So 85% of the spaza sector is now immigrant. So it's 4 groups: Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Ethiopian, and Somali, with the Somalis dominating the biggest stores. And what they've done in essence is that the small South African guy couldn't compete with the entry of ShopRite and Pick and Pay into the townships. And the immigrant moved in and he could. He very sophisticated businesses. So there's a number of things. I mean, a lot of it is built around they group up in groups and they will put money together. People talk about bulk purchasing. It's not a lot, but the big thing that they do is they capitalize their businesses. So there's a guy in Soshanguve, north of Pretoria, and 5 of them got together, put 50,000 Rand each into this store, and they spent the money on enlarging the store and buying stock. And today, that 250,000 Rands worth of stock and building is probably worth 20 million Rands worth of stock. He's got 6 big Mercedes trucks, and he's built this huge business. And they've recognized that their competition is not the guy across the road from him. They recognize that their competition is ShopRite. So they're perpetually seeing how do they compete. And then they're very clever on margins. What they do is that on a bulk product like 12.5 kg of flour or sugar, they charge higher than ShopRite. But then they're 20 meters from your home and they give you a little van who takes a trolley and pushes the 12.5 kgs across the road. On other items like, something light like tea or something like that, they will charge cheaper than ShopRite. So very variable margins.
What does this do to the supermarket groups? It must really mess with their brains, because if you go into a ShopRite, for example, you will see the value meals that are being created, and quite often they look pretty appealing at 11 o'clock in the morning and less appealing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and quite often they don't really move. Which is quite interesting. And this is, I think, the large corporates are really grappling with trying to understand what is it that the market wants.
You know, I recently went to a ShopRite in Khayelitsha, and they had these wonderful, affordable meals for 16 Rand and 15 Rand, and there was a quarter there that looked quite pathetic if you compare it to a township one, and sampan and mince and the other one. And I literally walked across the road into the taxi rank, and because I asked the manager, I said, "How does this do in your shop?" He said, "Well, it doesn't do very well." I was like, "Do you know why?" "No, I'm not sure why." So have you been into the taxi rank? He hasn't been into the taxi rank. So there I walked, 100 meters.
You bet your bottom dollar that the guy making the quarters in the taxi rank has been to the shop.
He's done the exact opposite.
To check out his
100%. And he can tell you exactly what price things are and whatever it is. And he can respond quite quickly with a competitive product. And we walked across, and there was a plate of for 35 Rand in the taxi rank. And this place was selling 500 plates a day, compared to the deli, which is doing almost nothing.
Because so many people so often make the mistake that price is everything.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when value is everything.
100%.
The mini mail bag, for example, the value of getting it delivered to your house outpaces the price that you pay at a supermarket versus the local shop.
Correct. And I say this all the time. It's not about, we dumb things down in the township economy or to poor people. And that's crazy, actually. I did some work with Nivea in the township environment in spas, and they've done incredibly well. Nivea has taken over from Vaseline as the #1 in certain categories. And one of the things was about you have to show the experience of a shelf of Nivea in a spaza shop must be the same as in a discount or in a whatever. And when you walk in and you see the point of sale material and stuff, you have a really sophisticated looking thing. So why should it be different? Why should the consumer who's walking in to a spaza shop have a different experience of your brand? And this is a huge problem that they have this different experience. And I say take affordability out the window, throw it out the window, and actually look at what is the value you're adding. And the value is sometimes about addressing pain points, so the transport is a massive pain point. Consumers complain about they hate month end because all the month end represents to them is queues.
Yeah.
So you say, Mabonya Mall is this wonderful shopping experience, and what is the consumer's experience of that mall? It's a queue to get on a taxi to go there. It's a queue at the ShopRite. It's a queue at the ATM, but not a queue that you're standing in there for 10 minutes. You're talking an hour to 2 hours.
Snake with 100 and 200 people.
Absolutely. You queue at the PEP. You queue. And on the way home, you have to queue in the taxi again and whatever. And now you're carrying all your bags and stuff like that. So, it isn't necessarily better. And your experience at another shop, at a Gorda outlet versus the KFC at the mall, or at the Spazaret versus, the ShopRite is quite different. Then, of course, the Spazaret also offers you credit without interest. So they offer the grant ladies and the gogos who pensioners, they'll offer them on food items credit without interest. So
it feels so 1960s and 1970s from the foothills where you grew up in KZN, the Free State where I grew up, and the general dealer model. Yeah. We'll talk about that in just a second. We're talking KasiNomics with an expert in the field of KasiNomics. We'll find out how he became the expert in just a moment here on Taking Stock.